And as the clock ticks down, I want to shift a gear a little bit because that's important for me to address what's going on with the natural disasters in the country, primarily the floods that we've had in the Missouri River. We have been underwater since early or mid-June. We have more water that's come down the Missouri River than at any time prior to this year in history. This is from Sioux City downstream, and they can talk about it very well up into the Dakotas. Christian Ohm and Rick Berg are very knowledgeable on what the disaster has done to them upstream. But where we are, Sioux City on down, that river has been since June, and I will say the mid-June. It's been about the narrowest typical place that you would see would be the water be about 1.5 miles wide. This is a river that I wouldn't recommend it, but it can be swam across. And about 1.5 miles wide downstream from Sioux City, and as you go further south, it gets to be 4, 5, 6, 8 miles wide at Blencoe, and north of the Omaha airport, 11 miles wide. Water 11 miles wide, and it narrows up downstream from Omaha to 4 to 5 miles, maybe 6 miles wide, all the way down into Missouri and into Sam Graves' district, typical on down. We have seen more water come down that river this summer than ever before. And it is a flood of massive proportions. And when I tell you a river that's 11 miles wide for 3 months long, it gives you a sense of what it is. But people have to be thinking it's stagnant water that's sitting there that can't escape. But it's really not. It's water with a velocity of 3 to 5 miles an hour, even out away from the central stream of the channel. And the central stream of the channel, it's 11 to 12 miles an hour, but out away at the base of the hills, and it's flooded hill to hill. The water is moving along at a clip that's, a fast pace, if you're walking, is about what it would be. And we have watched business after business, farm after farm, residence after residence go underwater. These sandbags set up pumps, and then they lose the battle. And then the house and the buildings fill up with water, sometimes clear up to the eaves, sometimes halfway up on the windows of the living room. And we have miles and miles of trees that have been standing in water that is 10, 12, 16 feet deep for the better part of the summer. I'll say all summer. And when the wind blows and the water starts to go down, the trees just tip over. Miles and miles of huge trees laying down, the swath of them just fallen over by wind and gravity and nothing for their roots to hang on to. And hundreds of thousands of farm fields that are underwater and flooded with huge sandbars that are created by the current, and all kinds of junk washed out into the middle of them. This is what we're dealing with in Missouri River. The Corps of Engineers has built in the upper Missouri River 6 dams. They're known as the Pick-Sloan program. That began sometime in the 40s and 50s when they looked back on the historically highest flood, which was 1881, and they had a large flood in 1943. It wasn't as much as 1881, but it was a heads-up, wake-up call that started Congress working, and they began working on this Pick-Sloan program to prevent flooding in the Missouri River. 1952, there was a huge flood, and that accelerated the construction, and they completed in the late 50s and early 60s the 6-dam reservoir complex of the Pick-Sloan program that goes clear on up into Montana. And they wrote a master manual for the Corps of Engineers that guides them on how they shall manage the reservoirs and how they shall manage the Missouri River. The master manual, Mr. Speaker, has been amended. I believe there have been 5 different versions. But in each of those versions, the Corps of Engineers has used the same amount of storage capacity for flood control. There's a permanent pool, and above that permanent pool, they have always kept 16.3 million acre-feet for flood control. And the reason that they have 16.3 million acre-feet is because that was the amount that was calculated that was necessary to protect from the floods of the largest runoff ever experienced, which was 1881. In 1881, 49 million acre-feet of water came down. In 2011, the number will be 61 million acre-feet of water. And so I have a bill that I trust was introduced this afternoon, or will be before the fall of the gavel today, Mr. Speaker, that requires the Corps of Engineers to manage the Pick-Sloan program to protect from serious downstream flooding and to adjust those flood levels to the largest amount ever experienced, and that language then means 2011 runoff rather than 1881 runoff. So that if we get another year of this kind of runoff, we'll be using the storage rather than having it be part of the permanent pool, so that all of this downstream flooding that has wiped out hundreds and hundreds of square miles and set it under a flowing current of water for the whole summer can all be protected. They easily have the storage capacity to protect all of us downstream from that type of serious flooding. And the legislation that I have that has been sponsored by representatives from, let's see, 1, 2, 3, at least 4 states along the Missouri, and I'm not sure who else might have signed on it this afternoon. That legislation just simply says to the Corps of Engineers, adjust the flood storage from the 16.3 million acre feet to an amount that will protect from serious downstream flooding. That's the message from in the bill. That's what I'm going to ask this Congress to pass. That's what I think we have a reasonable chance of having unanimous support among the states affected by the Missouri River floods, all the way up to the headwaters and all the way down to St. Louis. I'm hopeful that every member will sign on. It's bipartisan. We have about the same number of Democrats as we do Republicans on that bill. And it's something I feel the need to notice this Congress that is something that I'd ask for support, and hopefully we can start to move it through.